Hi guys, welcome back. So I'm going to do a demo real quick here. I have a couple thumbnails. So again, these are small thumbnails that were done by students, and I've enlarged them, and I want to talk about sort of developing two things. I want to talk about adding a little bit more to your thumbnail that might help the narrative or the overall design or composition, and then starting to develop that thumbnail forward to see what we're going to get in terms of taking it to the next level. So since these were thumbnails, we were blocking out composition and shape, and there's no real definite instructional guidelines to how somebody works. I mean, I think Tim Higley did this, and I thought it was a really nice thumbnail. It has a lot of atmospheric perspective. It's really moody. And I was making, but he was sort of like, well, I feel sort of lost on it, and I feel like it's sort of empty. So I had the thought of, when I saw this, I saw a big castle back here. And then I thought the idea of enhancing more of a pathway, and then coming in, see this fog that he got in here? I really like that feeling of fog, and then we could come in and address that a little bit later towards the end. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this. And what I did here is I just have this larger image here. So I have my image, which is 11 by 17 by 300. So he did this as a really tiny thumbnail, and I just transformed it and enlarged it. And you can see that the thumbnail is getting a little pixelated in there, but that's okay because there's enough in there for me to go in and start develop more of that environment. Okay, so I'm going to do that right now in part of this first demo here. So let me just click a couple layers above his image. And one of my thoughts was if there's a cool castle structure back there. And since I just happened to do a piece that was very similar to this, I sort of know exactly what he already has. Part of the foundation right back there. So what I'm going to do is come down here, and I know in a couple of my brushes here, let me just find it, I have a couple of cool, I gave you these brushes. One of them, I used to have some cool castle brushes and I lost them, so that's something else I need to go do. But right here in my buildings, I have a couple, this building right here I really like. It gives me a really distinct feel of a castle. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to sort of swab that value right there, and I'm just going to come in here and just sort of, now you'll notice when I click this with my pen, there's a little bit of a problem. My pen is on touch sensitivity up here, and it's also picking up pen pressure. That's when I go and I use the mouse. So if I come over here with the mouse and I come at 100% and I go like this and go and click it, it's going to come in there. Now one of the things that's happening here is I can't see the image I'm trying to click in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a light adjustment on Tim's piece here. I'm going to go to my brush real quick. I'll come back to that. And man, Photoshop you should have two primary brushes that you can use all the time, right? That'd be really cool. I'm going to go to the soft brush, and I'm going to grab this value right here, and I'm just going to put a little bit of that down underneath there, okay, on top. And the reason that why I did that is that now when I come back and I put that castle on there, I'm going to be able to see it. So even if I come in here and just fade that back just a little bit more, and then I'm going to develop that hill with the castle, and then we'll develop a walkway, and we'll start to put some light in there, and the piece will start to come forward a lot more. So, okay, real quick here, let's go back to our brush. Let's scroll back down and grab that castle brush that I had. Okay, there it is. So, what's cool is since this is on another layer, right above here, so I just grab that value right there. Now when I stamp this, look at what happens. See, now I could see the silhouette much more defined. So that was just a simple little thing of pushing and pulling the values. When I first put that castle in there, I couldn't see it, okay? Now here's sort of the fun part for me, is that this is the stuff I really love. Look, I did that really quick, right? So I'm going to go to my brush now. Let's come back. I have another, more of what I call like a painting brush for blocking in. So I'm just going to grab that, and I'm just going to just come down here and pull this all the way down, okay? Let's see, what's my brush set at right now? Okay. Get that structure to come down there. Get that to sort of fade in over here a little bit. And if I want to even add a little bit more, use your lasso tool and your transformation tool, and we can come up with all kinds of goodies. So look at that little tier right there. I can copy that, paste that. I'm going to bring it right over here. I'm going to hit transform. I like to flip stuff all the time. I'm going to flip it horizontally and see how it fits right there on that edge. That's pretty cool. It goes just right there. Okay, so I'm going to take that. I'm going to merge those two together. And now it's still in the memory, the paste, right? So watch, I'm going to paste it again. Okay, see it's still there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop that underneath the castle so it's behind it. So hold on a minute. There, now it's behind the mist. So let me get it right back in here. And I'm going to lighten it. So I'm going to go to levels. Oh, wrong way. I'm going to lighten it a little bit to make it look like it's part of the castle, maybe behind the castle. Does that make sense? And it's the same size right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to enlarge it a little bit here. You know what? Hold on. That's really, I'm getting this weird. I thought that was a pure value right there. And see what's happening is it's fading in, making the other side darker. So let me come up here real quick. I want to fix that. So I'm going to take that stamp, which is this layer right here, and I'm just going to duplicate it on top of itself right now. So it gets a little bit darker. I want it to be pure. There we go. And let me just come back here. I want to label everything I had. So that was the overlay of the mist that I put down to lighten it up so we can see the castle right. And now if I grab this and pull it back there, you see that? It's not affecting the value. So what that means is when I had stamped it, it wasn't quite at 100%. It was maybe at like 70%. So when I'm dragging the other image back there, it was messing up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a different looking sphere with that, or what do you call it, spire, right? The tall cornice there. So I'm going to come over here. That's very similar to what's there. So I'm just going to come in here and just make some adjustments. I might actually grab that like this and move that, put it down a little bit lower, copy and paste that. I might move some of that over here just a little bit like this. And then I just do this really fast. I might come in here and erase a little bit of an edge off there. Sometimes I use my line tool to define something that's more detailed, and I can delete, try to get a nice hard edge in there. Now I have a little bit of overlap in that guy too, so I'm just going to paint it out, try to get 100% value, and I'm just going to come down and paint this out. And if you want to take your lasso and do something like this, you could totally do that. See that? I just added that on really quickly. And if I go to my brush now and I paint that in, see that? That's a solid value right there. And so now when I grab and I drag that behind the castle, do you see how that could fit in right there? It makes it look like it's part of the castle behind itself. Okay. Oops, what did I just do? I hit something I didn't mean to do. Okay, what happened there? Hold on, guys. Let me pause the recorder. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened, but I was trying to adjust it and something weird happened in Photoshop. Okay, so what I was going to do is take that. I want to flip it. So I'm going to go to Transform. Let me just select that. Let's go to Transform right now. I'm going to tell it to flip it the other way. Ooh, that's why. I know what I did. Hold on, guys. All right, sorry about that. I hit some weird funky key and something weird happened there. So anyway, I like this structure that I have back there. I wanted to flip it. I even had the idea of it being larger back there, what it might look like. I'm just tempted. What if I put it back here? I want to make it smaller because it's behind the castle, right? You see that? So it could be sort of back there like that. And then I'm going to duplicate that layer really quick. Okay. I'm going to bring that over here. Now I'm going to transform that one, flip it the opposite direction, and then stretch it out. See that? How it's larger? See if I can get that to sort of fade in about like right there. So now it looks like there's a whole world back there, right, Tim? See that sort of coming alive? And so I might even raise it up a little bit like this. So it looks like there's something really important back there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my brush and then just sort of paint that structure going this way. And then I'm going to come in here and try to erase where that overlap is happening between your other foreground elements, okay? So let's go back to brush here. Let me get that knocked in there a little bit. And then let me just double check a couple things. Let me merge these two together so I can see what they're looking like. So there I have the backdrop, and then I have that overlay there. Okay, so that's pretty cool. I like that structure. It's not all the same. You see how I quickly changed that though off of one stamp? I just added something, duplicated it, transformed it, moved it to the side. So now I have this sort of cool structure, and I was wanting to do this little thing. I was wanting to get this circular effect in there because part of me imagined a little moon being up here. I thought that would be pretty cool to enhance the mood of the composition and the structure that's back there. Anyway, with that said and done, and look at this. I can even take this now. Okay. The only thing I don't like, now I'm second guessing something. The only thing I don't like is the shapes are getting larger. It's receding backwards. See what I mean? So to really enhance scale, let me select this part here, and I'm just going to do this. Uh-oh. My bad, wrong layer. This is what I meant to do. Select, I want to select that, and let's make it skinnier. So let's scale it down a little bit. Yeah, I want it to be sort of like it's in the back, like that. See the difference that does? Is it allows the front shape to pop forward more because the scale behind it is a little bit less. So I'm going to select that one now, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to squeeze it over a little bit, maybe like this, and put it right in here. Okay. All right, and then what I was going to do is I was going to take this front layer that we just made here. I'm going to duplicate that guy. I'm going to bring him forward just a little bit like this, and I'm going to go to levels. I'm going to darken him up because I'm thinking of having some type of rock or supportive structure. So it's too similar to the other one, but watch what happens if I come in here with my lasso and pretend like I'm making like a rock wall that might be an entryway into there. Do you see that? And I hit delete right now. So do you see how that could be a pathway going up a hill, and then you have this giant castle in the background? Okay, that's sort of the direction that I'm starting to move into. So let me delete that right now. And okay, let me just hit V and see where it yeah, something about there. But again, I don't want it to look like I copied it from that original, so I'm going to delete that, take that off. So now it doesn't look like a copy, does it? It looks like its own separate. And I don't have the master here, but I like this feel. I can't talk. Tim had this good feel in here of what looks like maybe some type of waterfall or something. So I'm going to look at that, and I want to erase some of this that's overlapping because I want to keep some of that darker value that he has in there. Okay, and then I can paint that in once I sort of commit to it. So I like that a lot. Let me duplicate the layer real quick. And I wanted to just bring that forward a little bit over on this side. Maybe just about right there. Okay. I'm going to erase this here because I like the darker values that he had there. I'm going to come with my brush, and I'm going to just paint in some of this in here. So I'm imagining I might paint a little bit of a white walkway going up that hill, Tim, to sort of define a pathway that leads to the structures that are back there. Okay. There we go. Let's get that to blend in there pretty good. Now it gets to be a pretty darker value in here, but that could come to my benefit a little bit back here, where I might have, when I start thinking about having light sources coming across from the moon up here, some of this could be like in shadow right in here. That could be pretty cool. So I'm just going to rough in how I'm imagining some stones with like darker values on the back and whatnot in there. Okay, just real quick, nothing too fancy. Okay, there. So now I have something that's pretty cool in the background that's sort of floating back there. And now let's come in here and let's develop, I'm just going to paint on top of this. I just want to develop a little bit of like a walkway or something just to enhance the scale. Because right now when I'm looking at this piece, let me merge all these layers into one. Okay. I like to commit to them, right? So right now I just have, I'm keeping everything so I can show you the difference of before and after. I'm only about 11 minutes into this. Okay, so part of my thought was this. I'm going to do this on another layer. I love walkways and pathways. I might dull some of that down, Tim, in a little bit because it's really bright. So part of my thought is hey, if there is a little bit of a walkway, and I'm going to put my brush at about 90% now, so I can see the lines that I'm putting down here, that if I have a little bit of a walkway that looks like it's going up, and I like to break the lines. If I have them too consistent, it could feel like it's actually could come that way. Then it could sort of come down to here. The path could go this way. Actually wrap around some of this. So the longer and more windy that I make that, and then there's this guy, right? And then it comes this way. So you see what that just did right there? It created a tremendous amount of scale in the piece by me adding that in. Okay, so now I'm going to come in here, and I like to think of this pathway as obviously getting thicker to thinner, but also I don't want it to be too bright in the foreground. So here I'm just going to rough it in real quick here. We'll come back later. That'll be a good detail stage just to put some rocks around it. define it a little bit more. But I like the thought of thick and thin lines that are sort of broken. You know what I mean? I don't want to have it. The eye will fill in the rest of the shape, if that makes sense. If I get in there and if I just make the whole entire pathway solid white, it doesn't look right. So go back to remember that's Gestalt, okay, the German psychologist that figured out the Gestalt theory by us putting a little bit of line detail and then breaking that line in certain points. Like here I break it, and the eye is going to look at that and fill part of that in. So you see that? It goes up this little hill, and then it starts to go up here, and then it gets a lot smaller. Sort of drops down in there a little bit, comes over. Okay. Now this is where I can use some of that darker value that he had in here. A little bit darker here, because now on the back side of that trail, that's going to be sort of rock in there, right? It might be elevating up, so I just might come pencil in just a couple little darker values of this mountain, the rocks, whatever's in there. And so now I have to ask myself, you can see what's happening. Now I like that waterfall, but it's way too bright. Okay, so I need to really tone that down quite a bit. So I'm just going to take some gray and, maybe not that darker gray. Let's go to like a 20% grade. And I'm going to paint that down, knock it down. So this is when I'm talking about the pushing and pulling the values. This is what's important to me. And this could actually be cool. There could be a walkway path. I could have another waterfall in the background, Tim. That could really enhance part of that structure. And then I have this walkway, this pathway coming here. And then I just realized something just now looking at this about the pathway. I don't want it to come right here. Wouldn't it look better if I did this? Let's get that value in there. What if it came through here like that? Doesn't that look a lot better? Because then it's wrapping around something, I'm overlapping it. So I actually just noticed that. I was too busy looking in here. If I look out on this composition, I realize like, ooh, it looks a lot better over in here. So let me see if I can close this real quick. There we go. Okay. And this is nice, Tim. Yeah, this nice like foliage, these little areas in here. And again, if you want to use, you could do something like this with a line and like wrap it around. Like that. Hit H to hide it. Go in with your brush then and just sort of paint like a madman in there and just get that in there. And then you don't want to get too hard of edges, right? So then you can either come back with the white and soften up some of those edges and make it look like it's sort of blending in as some type of rock. And I can come back later. We'll do detail on this. We'll put rock or whatever. But now if I get that, let's just, again, I like the lasso. It's so much easier. And I like curves. Like that, okay? So that's going to start looking a lot better if I hit H on that. Oops. Control H, brush. I'll come back and I'll move this guy inside that position. And, ooh, I just had another idea too. Okay, deselect. Let me go to eraser. I'm going to erase some of this. It's right in there. Drop my eraser down to like 3% so I can fade some of this in real lightly so it's not so heavy. There we go. And then I thought about now coming over here and wrapping this way like that. You see that? Just that little curve in there. Okay. Oops. Sorry, keep thinking I'm on my Mac. H, go to brush. Right there. Aha, that's cool. Deselect. So now I have that walkway that takes me all the way through there and winds me down. Okay, and I haven't even done any atmosphere or light yet, but when I look at what I have here, now I want to take his guy and let's just, here, can I paint him out? Yes. So I'm just going to paint his guy out here. We don't need him right now. I can come back in, put him back in there. That's easy. Just do a quick silhouette of somebody. So, and if I come over here, let's say I want to stamp a moon in there real quick. And let me go to brush real fast here. Let's just start to just finish up part of the composition. I think I have a moon in this brush set. Let me see if I do. I have too many brushes in here. I could have swore I had a moon. Where's my moon? Resume. Okay, so I just threw a quick moon in there, something I just created really fast with a sphere. We can go back in and paint highlights and some other mood a little bit later. And then let's just stop back and let's just take a look at the whole entire composition that we have now. Okay, so all these layers are compressed into one. So that's where we sort of started with. Okay, and then just by adding in, see the castles back there, the road that goes in, the little moon, we really open up the opportunity now to start telling a little bit more in terms of a narrative or a story. I can have characters walking up here, coming through here. They can be walking down that path. That really, when I take that off, look at the distance that gets created in there. Okay, and so that's just a quick example. That took me about 15 minutes to go in there, add that in there, and put that pathway, and it really creates a lot more depth inside the piece. And that's great. That's what we sort of want, because now I can come back on there and I could say, now that I put the moon in there, I really picked a indication for light source. So now with that moon in, I could come back into that. I could brighten up the moon. I could have light casting down. I could start to pick changes of value on the form sides of the castle, right? So does that make sense? I can start picking that the rooftop has light. So that might have roof hitting the light hitting the left-hand side here. Light might be hitting this side. It might be developing some stuff in here. I can even come back in here and I can start developing some of these waterfalls and also place them around in other parts of the composition. Okay, so now that I've developed, so this was sort of a good stage one. I developed the composition more. It wasn't worth wasting. I really like the rocks that Tim had in here. And now I could come back in here and let's start developing these a little bit more. So a couple things I could do. I want some more rocks along this pathway. So this would be me sort of diving in. Let me create a new layer here. I'm going to call this part of our detail layer here. I never do the light until the very end. I save that for the very end because to me that's sort of like the magic on how everything starts to come about in the mood. Okay, so for rocks, what's a quick way I could use some rocks really fast? Well, Tim's already provided me a couple of rocks here. I can take these and cheat it. He has a rock there. So I'm going to copy that guy and I'm going to paste it. And I could bring him over here, put him up on top. Okay, and I could transform him a little bit and I could scale him down. If I want, I could even create a quick rock brush. What I like to do, I don't know why, don't ask, but sometimes I just take something like this. I take a couple rocks that already exist because to me they're matching elements already in the composition. I'm just going to change the angle of them and then alter them from there. So watch, let me take that rock that's right in here as well. Okay, I'm going to copy paste that. Let me bring that over. Let's bring that up on the top here. So I want to try to do this pretty quickly. My thought is if I turn this in the direction of the light, and it's going to save me the value of having to get in there, and I could just sort of transform it real quick. Okay, I'm going to put that right here. Let me drop that under this one. So it's sort of overlapped right in there. Okay. And now I'm basically going to start painting a little bit. Okay, and I'll rough in some more. And then I'm going to merge these onto one. So this is how I like, when I think of rocks, I just want to get in here and I'm thinking of these rough rocks overlapping in the foreground like this, right? So I'm going to hit hide. Let's go to my brush. I'm going to paint a little bit of a darker value on some of those like that. I'm going to come in and go a little bit lighter on some of the top parts, like so. And then he has that, I'm going to have that light that's going to be coming down from that moon. So I might come in here and hit this with a little bit, hit deselect. So I just quick rough in, block in, and get part of that ground plane in there happening. So I'm defining a little bit, just a couple of the tops of those. Nothing too major. And this is, for me, a benefit of doing this real quick is also using, a texture brush. So the way I was rearranging my brushes the other day to the way that I had them, I lost them because I hadn't saved them, but I have some textures already saved in here that work really well. So if I come down here and I look like under my texture section, a lot of these grass, fog, presets, ground, splatter. So look, by coming in with this ground brush right here, and I think I already gave this to you guys, if I come in a little bit darker, see what that did right there? And if I just sort of slide that around, you see how quickly I just established the ground in the front there? See, it just feels like ground wrapping around. It just took me 3 seconds to do that, right? And I have to go in there and paint every single detail. Now if I make my brush a little bit smaller and where my road is sort of blending over, if I come along the side of my road and do that a little bit too, see that defines the road a little bit? And I can even stamp a little bit and go down about a 30. I might stamp a little bit on the road itself so it doesn't feel so white. It sort of breaks up part of the value. But I like the rocks that I put in there real quick. Let's see what else. I had another, if I scroll down in here and I look under, not under trees, but under for textures here. Okay, where am I? There we are. Okay, so under texture, I had, this is another ground plane brush that does some pretty cool. Got to make sure I have a darker value though up here in the foreground, right? Up to about 90. Okay. Really define and get a little bit darker. Eventually I'll come back in there. I want to have some trees and some other elements in there too. Okay. But now that I just did that real quick, see that? That's just on one layer. Now to save myself time, I'm just going to select this in here. And I'm just going to copy that and paste it. Then I'm going to bring that in here. I'm going to transform it. Let's flip it horizontally so it doesn't look the same. I'm going to scale it down. Okay. I'm going to put it right in about there. I'm going to go to levels real quick. And I'm going to adjust the level, knock it down just a little bit, like so. About like there. Okay. And then I might erase a little bit of it where it's overlapping so it doesn't look quite the same. I want some of the pathway to come out a little bit. But see, I just did that really quick. Just taking something I had already painted and I can manipulate it. It's the same thing too if you want to use a stamp tool. You know, don't forget that's a great asset where I could just come in here and take part of that and I just put it right there. See, I need to stamp it a couple times. See, and it just put that and it helps bridge that walkway, okay, really quick. And then I could also do the same thing back there too. So look, if I take stamp, I can take this right in here. I can come back in there. And now it's a little bit larger. It's the same size. So that's one of the benefits. If you pull up your stamp tool options right now, see, I can come under my stamp tool options and I can tell this to go down to like 70% right there. So now when I stamp, if I stamp that rock, it's going to make it 70% smaller back there. And I don't want to hit it. My opacity is at 90. So if I drop my opacity to like 30, it's going to allow me to sort of paint it in really light. You see that? And I just put that little corner in there. And I might do that in a couple little spots. That's to develop a little bit of that rock feel. You could take a rock brush and do it, but sometimes a rock brush doesn't quite feel right. Okay, anyway. So I always put my stamp tool, my stamp tool back to 100% when I finish using it. Let's go back to layers. And let's go back to my brush. Let's take some of that highlight. Okay, let me come back over here. Let's go to my painting brush here. And after I put the rock in, it knocked down a little bit of the road. So I'm just going to come in here and paint a couple little parts where I want that to pop back in just a little bit. Okay? Get that to pop just in there. All right, so now pretty much I think what I would want to do is I want to define a little bit more. I want some, this is sort of a dead corner to me here. I want to get some type of elements or tree structure or something overlapping. And part of me wants to darken in some of this to really create more of a foreground, which will really make this pop in the background right there. So to do that, let me come in here. Let me just keep everything on just a layer so we can get back in there and you can see where we were. And let's just merge it all into one. Okay, so put a layer up on the top here. I'm going to take my brush. This would be easier just to select it, but I'm just going to go ahead and paint it. I'm just going to pick a darker value up here like this. And I'm just going to come in here and just say, hey, I'm going to have darker values to that rock. more of a shadow side back on this edge here. Trying to define out some of those values, how I want this to look in here. I know it's real rough. I could then come back in. If you're getting something like, hey, that's cool, but now the brush is a little choppy, that's fine. You can always take your smudge tool if you want. I can come back in here when my smudge is at, let me put it like 10%, and then I can just sort of lightly come in here, get rid of some of those hard edge lines from the brush. Okay. Still want to go over it a little bit darker, get it to pop. So that's where I like to come in sometimes, and just to do it in a safe aspect, just take a nice soft brush like this and drop it to like 20 or 30, and I just sort of come in here. See, what it's going to do is it's going to go over those darker values on there, and it's going to blend it in, so I don't have to worry about getting in there too much. And then I can just darken it from here, darken this corner. And I'm going to put a tree or something that's in there. I want something here to go that goes this way compositionally, because I want it to be supportive to the rest of the composition getting enhanced and pulling my eye in there. Okay, so let's see if we can do something real quick. I have some brushes that are already in here. Let's just real quick. Let me go down. Let's go to tree and leaf. What do I have? There's leaf. Okay, and look, I can do this on another layer. And this is pretty cool. You see these like nasty looking brush here? And you get that value. Look, I'm just going to stamp it. Now, when I stamp it with my pen, it doesn't really work as well. But if I stamp it like this with the mouse, it's great. See, now that I get that in there, I could like come over here, transform that a little bit, get that up in here, pull it down a little like this. It's on a separate layer. Okay, and now if I go to levels and I just darken that up a little bit more, and then I could paint some, you know, other little moss or whatever in there, something else. See, it's sort of enhanced part of that. I don't want to get too close. Let me pull it back into like over here, let's say. Okay, and if I go back to the brush, it's still there. It's just cool. Or I could just take this layer that I already did. I can duplicate it. Just going to bring it down right in here. I'm going to transform it. I want to have some of that here in the foreground. And since that's even a little bit closer to me, let's make that a little bit darker. Okay. That's pretty cool. I'm going to commit to those layers. Oops. Let me duplicate that real quick. Transform. I'm going to flip it horizontally in the other direction. I don't want too much of that in there, but just a little bit so we know it's there. Rotate it a little. Just going to get it in just about like that. And then I'm going to erase some of it so it doesn't feel like an exact copy. Just like that. A little bit on that side. Just curious. Let me see what else I had for... Now, I like those sort of dead branches because it makes it a little bit more spookier. If I wanted to, I could put some leaves on there. Let me see what else I had in tree. Sometimes you don't have all the same trees, so it could be fun to put something else in. Like, let's see that. That's more like a bush, scraggly bush. And if I come over here and see, put a little bit of that in there. Let's see what value am I at right now. So it doesn't feel so breaks up part of the space in there. Okay. What else? Where's my tree stuff? There it is. I gotta find my other. I had some really cool tree stuff. Now I could come back. Oh yeah, here are my branches. That's what I had it above. There it goes. I was looking in the wrong area. So I even have like this, a couple of cool branches. Uh-oh, what happened to my branch? And let me commit to those. Let me bring those in. Okay. And what's this at? Oh, that's why I was having such a pain in the butt time. I thought I hit my opacity, and I guess I didn't click it all the way. I'm at 20% opacity. That's why I couldn't stamp earlier. So now I'm at 100. So if I get, let's get that darker value in here. Get a tree branch or two turning in there. Always does that. It breaks it for some reason at one point. Okay. So that just adds a little bit to it, you know. It's just the overlap. Now I want to come in here. Let's say we put a character in there real quick, and then I'll start to put some more atmosphere back there. We'll start to intensify the light and brush in some more values and pull the rocks out and stuff. Okay. So let me see where I'm at right now. Keep those in there. I'll keep that. It's two separate layers because I want to make any adjustments. Really quick, let me see what else I have. Let's say you did want to add leaves. Leaves could be fun because they can be just a real simple, like maybe it's fall time, right? And since it's fall, we just have some leaves. These are little elements that might be like, look, just sprinkled on the ground a little. Hold on, why am I not getting my leaves to come through? There. See, the brush picks up sensitivity. I could just grab, I know it looks stupid, but sometimes just putting little leaves around like that, your eye just sees it. It just looks like feathers or something's fallen down, or it just adds just a little bit of information. I love leaves in a piece because it can really add just little sensibilities that make it sort of come alive. Just like that, something real small. Okay, all right. So let's what I want to do next. Let's push up some of the white light that's on there. So I'm going to commit this together. Okay. So now let's come over here. Let's take a look at our little moon up there. And real quick, I want to move. I noticed this is all got shifted down. There we go. So here, put a layer up here. I've already did that. And call this light. And I'm just going to see if I could define a couple areas here and get some nice little highlights coming out there. I have a couple little cheats up my sleeve that I can do. Again, if I could expedite my time, and I have this little cheat right here. Okay, but I can drop that behind, and that's more of a sun ray. But then if I smooth that out, I can use that to my benefit. It's a little gradation. That's like, Moses is here. That's like super powerful, right? And a little too bright. So, but by dropping the opacity down a little bit, like that, see, I get some little light rays that come off a little bit, and they could look like the moon is being underlit, and I could apply that too. Let me go ahead and just bring out some whites in the moon here. See if I can get a little bit of. Go back up and let's paint just for a little bit. Let's use this. Oops. Gosh darn it, what did I hit? Let's go back up. Don't crop. Dang it, I keep hitting the same key that's my hotkey at home, but it's not my hotkey here. My bad. I'm trying to blend some of those edges in so they're not so defined a little bit, just to get a little bit more of that moon to come forward. And then what I might do here is now this is on a separate layer here, right, with my highlights. So I want to see if I can start brushing in some values on these rocks and get some of these shapes to turn a little bit more. So let's do that. Let me just grab a value like about there, zoom in just a little bit here, and let me see if I can just do this with a brush here. I had this brush I created the other day by accident. It worked pretty good. Let me see how well this works here. I want to kill it, flatten it, but I want to just get a couple little highlights to pop out. Trying to get a certain rhythm for the structure. All right, I'm going to smooth some of that over. That's still a little bright back here, but so I'm going to go over some of my edges were a little hard. I want them to get a little bit more blurred. And some of that got a little bright, but I can come in and erase just a little bit. I'm going to go in and just erase it like 10%. It's really low. And some of those got a little too bright of highlights. Okay. Just like a little bit to turn the form on a couple of those. All right, and then, so So what I want to do now, let me put a little bit of haze. I'm going to come in with, let me commit to everything that I have. I'm going to get rid of that light layer. I don't like that anymore. Let me commit to everything. And let me just come in and put a little bit more haze floating around here, add a little bit more atmosphere. So I'm just going to take a fuzzy brush real quick and just sort of come in here and just softly, oops, not that brush. Now, there can be a difference between having like a little bit of atmosphere in there and then also having some clouds that start to come in. And I have this, since the back, I want it to be a little bit lighter. Now, part of me second guessing my moon. It's a little bright, but that's okay. Let me come in here and take a, I wanted to come back and use, put some clouds and like some floating elements up in the front a little bit. There it is. There's cloud one there. Where's the other clouds I had? There. Now, I'm zooming in here, Tim, and I'm realizing I'm sort of killing this a little bit. I've flattened it out with a little bit too much white in there, and that's my bad, and I didn't put it on another layer. I worked on to one, so I want to dull the moon down a little bit there, and then I'm looking at that, and I'm like, nah, that's not working. I'm getting too much into it. And part of me is because I'm spending too much time in here and not coming back into there, but even if I just take that off and just zoom back out to where I was, so compositionally, I like that a lot better than where we were there. You know, huh? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more happening and takes us back there. I started to over-render this a little too much, and that's my bad. I need to go back in and just take some of that out of there. It's just I got caught up into it, and I don't like my moon either. It's too rough of a moon. But my next step would be is developing this, getting rid of some of these little highlights. So I really like that waterfall. I thought of incorporating more of these. What if you had another one back here too? It could tie this all in, and this looks like it's a road, and some of it might even look like it's swampy, because if you have that waterfall there, or we just get rid of it, if you have the waterfall there, the water is going to keep coming through here as well. Okay, yeah, that was getting way too much. But what's cool is sometimes you can take that, dull it down a little bit, and we get a little bit of haze back there. And come back here. That's a new brush. I haven't used that guy before. I had some of these. Check what some of these are really cool. I'd found this online, this Inca Trail for a cloud. Look at how nice and soft that is. It just sort of, and what's cool about that is if you get that at the right spot, and you could come up here where it's a little bit darker, so you can get some of that to really blend in very softly. Really creates a lot of nice mood.
Are you doing that in a reduced opacity?
Yeah, I'm at 10% on this brush. But see how that, just going from here to here, just 3 jumps, it really makes some nice transitions for that, like a dark sort of swampy, moody, you know. So let me come back in here. I killed some of this by putting too much white value on there. That's my bad. That's what you're going to do, and it's really easy to I was getting into it and I was starting to over render it, and then I look back at it and I'm like, nah, it's too much. It's killing part of the silhouette shape that was there. I just put too much. So if I tone it down a little bit, it'll go back to having more of a better of a visual read. But what's cool is now I can keep some of the highlights that I wanted, just little speckles of it. Maybe that's a problem. I was back there working in a brush, you know, that was larger, and that those large highlights don't really feel correct. They should be really small and thin. Just starting to paint a little bit of the adjustments of where shadow might be against the light. So it's not bad what I did before having that in there, because it turns the form a little bit, but I just want to get in there and push some of that back. A little bit too much white was in there. Okay. Get that light just a little bit darker towards some of that walkway there. Okay. I could still noodle with that a little bit more, but it looks a little bit better than where it was going. I had too many highlights on there, and I still don't like the moon. I want to fix that. But what am I, 50 minutes into that, okay? And, you know, let's take a look at all of those. Even take that off right now. Still want to come in here and just brush a little bit more, get some more light in there. Part of me is second guessing the moon a little bit because it's almost too bright. I thought about maybe if I dump the moon and just having some haze, it's almost pulling you away from the silhouette that was there before. So maybe that moon wasn't a good decision in the composition, because if I have light feel like it's glowing behind it, I'm realizing now that would get the castle to sort of pop. So now I'm starting thinking, let me see if I just do this real quick here. What if I erase the moon? Okay. Get rid of that. Maybe I could just have some like light clouds in the back blending through. I think that's going to work a little bit better. Then I think that moon was too bright, and it was too much was coming off of it. Let me go back to some of those clouds, and I'll throw some other clouds up on it, and then we'll end it. And so that's just my first pass, right? Enhancing the composition. I can still come back more and really get a lot more in there in terms of the light. Look, I have little rocks here, all these forms, the backside of this in there. Okay, let me see, what brush is this here? I like that a lot more with that gone, like that, with that big moon out of there. It just, I don't think it was needed. Okay. And the other thing too I haven't done, I was doing this fast, is that now here in the foreground, I come back and take some of these didn't connect all the way. So now if I could darken up a little bit of these where they come down and connect in here, like a little bit darker value, adds like a little bit of a coarse shadow. See how that, it can help anchor those structures down a little bit? Does that make sense? The way that that tool was stamped in there, some of that was missing. Okay. So I'm pretty happy with that right there. And I could still go into this and keep rendering more. Okay. So we're almost at the hour mark into that 50 minutes. Okay. So to me, that's pretty solid. Where now I can introduce a character in there. And I could put a character right. I want to stop the recorder in a minute because I'm afraid if it crashes, I lose all of it. So I usually don't go into the hour range. But look, if I put a character right here in the foreground and then put someone else back there, and then if I develop the waterfalls a little bit more, if I want to go waterfall. The one thing about the waterfall is if I decide to keep this one in right here, I need to decide where the water's going. Maybe the water's going into this somehow. Maybe I end up putting a big pond in here, having a reflection of that castle flipping down. Okay? I can do either or. That's my decision in which way to go. But just let's take a look at, I always like to do this sort of at the end here, before and after. Okay, oops, I think I painted, there we go. Let me merge all these together, sorry about that. So before and after. See, there's a lot there happening, but just, that's an hour. So an hour into that, imagine if I spent 3 more hours. I put an hour in it to refine the composition. I put scale in there, get the scale to match the lighting that's in the scene. All right, and then I go in and I really start penciling in some little details of the rocks and some of those other little structures. But see, that's why when I saw that comp, I thought, that's a great comp, Tim. don't get rid of it, because that's just going over and adding a little bit of information, foreground element, and we really create a nice depth and a nice breathe. Breathe, that's not a word. A nice sort of mood transitioning throughout that dark to light composition. Okay, so don't ditch that thumbnail, right? It's a good thumbnail to work off of. You did all the hard work by getting us to that right there. And that right there has so much. In fact, you know what we could do is maybe the next class, I could do another demo on this, and we could put multiple waterfalls back there and ditch the castle if you wanted to. I sort of like castles because they have a nice little transition, and they really create, you know, it enhances part of the scale that's back there too. Or if you really wanted to, you could take that out and put a big robot in the back, because everybody loves robots, right? Anyway, all right, guys, so let me end this right here.